Now that we have created our mission and we have entered the basic details like the title, the briefing text, and so on, we are ready to start adding objects. To add objects, you can just left click on the map, and this drop down menu will display with all of the object types that are available. In this case, we have a scenario objects, triggers, actions, world objects, activities, and route. So the first object that we want to add in this case is a spawn location. On version 1.0.1 is no longer required to have a spawn location for all of your missions, but in this case we want to spawn always on the same spot. So you want to add a spawn location right here next to this hanger. So I'm gonna left click, scenario, spawn, and then if I click on the object, I can modify some of the attributes of that object. So spawn, I'm gonna rename it as initial spawn location. I'm gonna change the spawn type. So this is the status at which, or the state at which the aircraft is gonna spawn. So if you want to do runway, it's gonna be full ready to fly. If you do shutdown, it's gonna be cold and dark. If you do cruise or final, it's gonna be that state. So I want to spawn on fully cold and dark. So I'm gonna modify it to shutdown. Orientation. This is the orientation in degrees. So we're currently pointing north. I want to point this way, so it's probably around 100 degrees, and you'll see that there's a small arrow here that is going to point towards that direction. I actually want to move it slightly forward, so I'm going to click and then click here on the arrows, and that lets me move my my object slightly forward to the location I desire. So I want to put it here. And then altitude is going to be 0 since it's going to be on ground. But if you uncheck this one, you can modify the altitude to whatever altitude you wish in feet. Speed is also going to be 0 since I'm doing cold and dark. In the case you don't want to have or add a spawn location, you can just create a mission in which you start at whatever location you are. So let's say you're flying and you just want to do a quick search and rescue mission. So you don't need to add the spawn location. It's going to continue from the place you're flying at right now. But in this case, we want to do a full close mission, so start to finish. So that's why we are in spawn location. You can also use a ship type object. In this case, we're in a mountain, but in the case you're in the ocean, you can use a ship type object and then change the ship spawn attribute to ready to go or shutdown. This is gonna essentially use that ship as a spawn location, so you will be able to spawn from the deck. Okay, so we have the first object, which is spawn. You will see that this object has properties, so you can connect this object to other objects. In this case, spawn finished is one of the properties that you can use to create a connection to a different object. We're going to use that property to then trigger something. So we want to use a trigger. This is not necessarily, you can put triggers in any location. You don't necessarily need to put it in a specific location in the world. This is just your logic behind the mission. So I'm going to use a timer trigger, and I'm going to activate this timer as soon as the initial spawn has been finished. So spawn finished, add a connection to the timer, and I'm going to activate the timer as soon as the spawn has finished. So I'm going to click on activate and then the check mark. Okay, so as soon as the aircraft spawns, the timer is going to start, and I'm going to uncheck active on start because I want to first spawn and then activate the timer. Okay, so the trigger time, this is going to be in seconds. I'm going to do just a debug for now, or 5 seconds. I want to show it on the screen, so this is going to show on the upper right corner of the screen, and I'm going to add a title, which is going to be start your aircraft as soon as possible. Fires are expanding. Okay. And as soon as the timer trigger ends, I want to trigger something else. So in this case, I want to trigger end of mission. So the logic behind this is the following. The helicopter spawns on the ground, and if I don't take off before, start the aircraft and take off before X amount of seconds, then the mission is going to fail. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to connect this one, the time trigger. I'm going to connect it to the mission complete object, and I'm going to trigger a mission failed check mark. And on mission failed, I want to add the following message: you did not start it fast enough, or let's say you did not take off fast enough. Mission failed. Okay. So currently the timer is only 5 seconds because we want to test this logic without wasting a lot of time. This is just a debug setup for now. So I'm gonna save and play and just wait a few seconds for the simulator to load. So what's happening right now is that it's changing my location. So it's spawning the aircraft on the correct location. It's loading all of the mission assets and preparing the mission for testing. So as you can see, I have a helicopter here, which is in fully cold and dark conditions. Fully cold and dark, and I have 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 0, and then mission failed because I didn't take off fast enough. So what is happening right now is that we have a mission that is configured to fail only. We need also a condition to stop the timer so the mission doesn't fail and activate the next objective. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here, modify the mission. We know this works, so I can increase my time to 900 seconds right now, which is 15 minutes. That's roughly what I want to give the user. And I'm gonna modify this: start your aircraft and take off as soon as possible. Okay. All right, so I need something to stop the timer as soon as the user takes off. For that, we can use a takeoff trigger. So left click, trigger, takeoff trigger. I'm going to increase the radius to cover the entire airport. So that's going to be roughly 2,000, and that's in meters. So 2 kilometers around the circle, the user might be able to take off. And as soon as the user takes off, by the way, I want to have this trigger active on start and only fire once. So as soon as the user takes off for the first time, the trigger activates. And what happens when the trigger activates? So on takeoff, I want to disable the clock, disable the timer. So I'm drawing a connection to the timer, and I'm going to deactivate that timer. Okay. So it's good practice to keep things here well named and organized so you know what's what. I'm moving this here. So I'm going to rename a few things here. So the timer trigger, this is my initial timer. Initial takeoff timer. This is my end mission, failed takeoff. And then my takeoff trigger, it can stay like that, takeoff trigger. So aircraft is going to spawn. I have 15 minutes. If the 15 minutes pass, then mission failed. If I take off before those 15 minutes, then I deactivate the timer. Okay, let's do a quick test here. Save and play. So every time you make a change, every time you want to test, you have to reload the mission. We have had a few users wanting to just bypass the reloads. Unfortunately, we are not able to do that because you need to essentially reload all of the components of the assets all over again. So this time you have to do that reload. It's only a few seconds, but as you can see here, we have 15 minutes to take off. What I'll do now, I'm just gonna enter the slew mode and increase the altitude slightly. And as you can see, as soon as my wheels lift off the ground, that timer is gone because the takeoff trigger activates for the first time. Okay. So the mission logic is working as intended right now. And let's make it very simple. Let's do so as soon as the aircraft takes off, the user is going to have a fire to extinguish. So we can just add an activity. Activities are like objects that have a lot of attributes and are already like pre-packed. So firefighting, for example, is an activity that is going to include the firefighting effects, all of the logic for whenever the user has water on the tanks, flies above the fires and extinguishes the fires. All of that is included right here. So just adding a firefighting activity. If I click on this, sure, let's make it active on start so the user can visually see the fires, the smoke from a distance. Amount of fires, I'm going to increase this to 15. And the spawn radius, so this is a radius in which the fires are going to be spawned at. So anywhere within that radius you might have fires. Let's just keep it at 200. And we can make this slightly closer to a city so it's, it appears as more dangerous in terms of expanding the fires. We currently do not support expanding wildfires, but this is something that we might support in the future. Okay, so it's very simple. As soon as the aircraft takes off, you have to fly towards the fires. It's going to be visible to the user, so you don't have to create a route in this particular mission, and it's also quite a short flight plan. Now we have to give the user directions, so we can use an objective to do that. And directions, not in the sense that the fires are towards this heading. It's more like an objective to follow. So we just create an objective object. We just had an objective object that is going to activate as soon as the aircraft takes off. So we go back here to the takeoff trigger, and on takeoff I want to add a second connection to activate this objective. Okay, so this objective has to be on the vicinity of the fires. Let's just put it here because it's going to show you direction. Actually, I want to have that disabled because it's going to be very obvious for the user where the fires are. So I'm going to disable that. Objective icon, I'm going to change it to firefighting. Sure. And I'm changing the title to fly towards the fires and extinguish them all. Okay, so that's my objective. Again, save and play. Wait a few minutes for the mission to load. We're here on the ground. We might be able to see the fires from here. And as you can see, since I have a firefighting mission, a firefighting objective, you have already a few predefined objectives right here. So fly towards the fires and extinguish them all. This is only supposed to show after I've taken off. So I have to verify why this one's showing up. But as you can see, load the Bambi bucket. This is automatic because I have already created a firefighting mission. You have to load the Bambi bucket before proceeding with firefighting. Extinguish the fires. This is showing you the direction, the general direction towards the fires. But as you can see here, we can see the smoke right here. So that's where the fires are. If you're familiar with developer mode, you can also use the developer camera to just move towards the general area of the firefighting mission. And it's very handy since you don't have to move physically the aircraft towards it there. We can just use the developer camera to kind of move there. But as you can see, you'll see all of the fire spots right here that you have to extinguish on the mountain. It's very complicated terrain, so that adds a bit of difficulty for the user. The user has to fly above all of these mountains to extinguish the fires. There's a few more things we want to add here because this is very high terrain, and the the MH60 has a maximum altitude of a maximum ceiling of 12,000 feet. About above 15,000 feet, actually, your engines are gonna die. So we want to add a cap to the altitude that a user can fly on this mission. We want to cap it at 12,000 feet, which is roughly here. If the user goes above this altitude, then the mission is going to automatically fail. Okay, so to do that is very simple. We just go back here to Mission Hub, modify the mission, and we're going to add a trigger, so an altitude trigger. In this case, we use a property trigger. So this one tracks a whole set of properties, such as altitude, above the ground, speed, ground level, ground speed, vertical speed, and so on. There's a lot of different triggers that you can use. In this case, we want to do altitude. This is the barometric altitude. We do it active on start. We just fired once. We do a trigger value of 12,000 feet with a minimum duration of 5 seconds. So if the user is above 12,000 feet for more than 5 seconds, the trigger is going to trigger and the mission fails. Okay? And we do duration must be continuous. Otherwise, for example, let's say the user goes above for 1 second, that's going to count that 1 second, and then the next time the user goes for another 2 seconds, then that's 1 second before plus 2 seconds, now it's 3 seconds, and so on. We do just continuous the duration, so it's continuously for 5 seconds. The user above 12,000 feet, proper trigger triggers. If the user is higher than 12,000 feet, we are going to add a connection to a mission fail. So we create a new mission fail object, and we create a new one just because we want a different message. So this one is specifically for takeoff. We want to create a new mission and mission object, and this one's for altitude. So we do altitude. You went above the altitude ceiling for this aircraft. Okay, and we connect that trigger. We connect the trigger higher than 12,000 feet. We connect that to mission failed. Okay, you went above the altitude ceiling. You can place this anywhere on the map. This is applicable to anywhere on this mission. In the future, I can show you how to create area-specific triggers, property triggers, so it only triggers within the specific area. But in this case, we want to do it for the entire mission area. I like the fires right here. I'm going to leave those there. It's below 12,000 feet, so the user should have plenty of space. Now we want to guide the user towards... See, this one right here doesn't seem to be connected, so that's why it was triggering before. Let's just move it. Oh, it is actually connected. We probably want to connect this one as well then. Okay, yeah, so the issue is right here. I had active on start enabled, so I want to disable that, so it's only active after the takeoff trigger has been triggered. So on takeoff, trigger the objective. It's no longer active on start. Okay, and then for the firefighting trigger, I probably want to have that also not active on start, only active after takeoff. Do I want that? Well, it depends on the logic of your mission. I'll probably actually just leave it on active on start, so it's always active. Okay, we are just missing one thing right here, which is where to get the water. You can guide the user if you want to a specific spot to get water, or you can just leave it to the user. In this particular case, there's a river, there's a few things here, there's a pond right here. I probably want to guide the user to one of these ponds, or just a general direction towards an area. We can just use another objective. Let's say around this area right here on the park, we can just create an objective so the user knows roughly where to look for water. So I'm gonna do objective title Uh, I don't want this active on start. I'm gonna disable that one. Objective. I'll actually do a different. Yeah, let's do a marker. Show direction, sure, because we want to show the general direction of the area. And the objective title is find a water source near the town. Okay, and that's my objective, water source. So right here, this is the title of the object, and this is the title of the objective. So this title right here is what it's going to show here on the HUD. This is just a title for internal use, so you know what component is doing what on the list. Okay, so I think we're ready. This is pretty much a complete mission right now. So the user has a few challenges to look for. The user has directions on where the objectives are. There's an activity to do, which is the firefighting. You can also add a return to the airport if you wish. Now we're only missing the success trigger. Okay, so we have a couple of mission fails. We're missing one success. Okay, to end the mission successfully. And how to end this mission? Well, very simple. You extinguish all the fires, you end the mission. So we want to add a scenario in which you use an end mission, and we connect fires extinguished to the success mission success property. Okay, so firefighting, maybe 15 is too many. Let's do 10 fires, and let's modify the radius to 170, so it's a bit closer together. And then once all of those 10 fires have been extinguished, we do a mix and mission successful. So we want to add a successful message. So congrats, you have extinguished the wildfire. Okay, now this is a fully 100% complete mission. You have various fail points, you have a success point. How to make this a bit more difficult? Well, you can just add a timer to limit how long the user can take to finish this mission. So let's say you can add a timer forcing the user to finish the mission in half an hour. And that adds another level of complexity, as a user has to, go back and forth with high speed and high accuracy, because missing one fire can cost you a lot of time, and then you might fail the mission because of that. In this case, we are not going for the highest difficulty, so we're just going to leave it like this. We do a save and play. And then right here is when you test your mission. You actually fly this mission to make sure it behaves as you intended, and everything seems to work correctly. Once you're good to go, you can just share the JSON files with your friends or share it online on our Discord for other users to fly your mission. And yep, this is how to create a mission with Mission Hub. This is a simple firefighting mission. We're going to show you how to do other types of missions in other videos in the future. Thanks.